Howdy, how's it going? Welcome back, or howdy if you're new. Well, today we have an Armory Crate update for all of you ROG Ally users and enthusiasts out there. I'm going to show you a couple scenarios in which you could improve your battery life, your FPS, visual quality, whatever you're trying to do. I'm going to cover a lot of scenarios here, and I'm going to show you how I have mine set up. We're going to skip around a little bit, but we're going to go over a lot of the settings that I suggest that you should try and see if it helps you and your experience. Also, we're going to dive into some charging scenarios and some docked scenarios, some battery bank scenarios, and I'm going to show you how to make sure that you are getting the most amount of FPS possible when you are plugged in, docked, however you want to plug power into this thing. I'm going to show you how to make sure you get more than the FPS that you probably are getting now if you are in any of these scenarios. Without further ado, let's dive right on in. So this is the Armory Crate menu. This is the Armory Crate button. I'm sure all of you know that. When I talk about power wattages, APU wattages, this is where I'm talking about it at. Simply put, this mode is your APU wattage target. APU is basically a CPU with a GPU built in, which the Ally and all these other handhelds are utilizing a similar thing called an APU. When you are plugged in to a proper power adapter or power source, you will see this mode first, 30 watt turbo, or you'll see 30 watt manual. Now here's a new feature. When you pop up that 30 watt manual mode, you're going to see immediately here, SPL, SPPT, FPPT. What the heck do those even mean? Well, in simple terms, the top one is what your APU or CPU wattage is going to target. It can boost up to 43 and 53 watts in different stages. Here is the scenario I'm going to give you first. Let's say you're plugged into the wall or you're plugged into a power adapter and battery life is not a concern. Heat's not really a concern. Leave all those up. Leave all those maxed out. It's not going to hurt anything. Just keep an eye on your temps. Some of these might boost the CPU up to its maximum temperature, but that's fine. If you want to save a little bit of heat, maybe a little bit of power, but you still want that 30 watt mode, slide this last one down to about 40 or all the way down as low as 30. And that way it's all locked at 30. That can keep the heat down a good bit and it can consume a little bit less power. So that's an option. Now here's the interesting thing. The second I unplug it, we go to 25, 30, 35. These are our power tables for the manual mode unplugged. If you want to conserve some power, since obviously you're not plugged in anymore, here's where I would focus my attention. It's going to depend game by game, but for me, I'll set all of these at 25. And then I go over here. If I'm in a game, I can do FPS limiter, but most games actually benefit more from using the in-game FPS limiter if you have it. I'll have 900p selected and I'll have it set at 60 Hz. Now, this is only for battery savers. If you are playing peak performance, go ahead and turn it up to 120. That way you get the fastest refresh rate and the most amount of FPS possible. 900p, I like 900p better than 1080p because you can't tell the difference between it, but you can tell the difference between 720 and 1080, for example. So here's what I would really suggest doing. Making sure if you want to save battery, have that at 900, have your refresh rate set at 60, have your power table set right here, however you want to do it. Then turn your brightness down to half or less. You'd be surprised, but that actually does make a difference on these games. Another thing you can think about doing is over in the taskbar, make sure you don't have anything running in the background. Make sure you don't have anything like an active wallpaper engine running. Anything that's moving on the screen, it's using power and it's going to drain your battery. So don't do that. Also, it uses RAM and it's just garbage anyways. So diving back into Armory Crate, you've got this right here, and this is basically the command center where you can edit and kind of like change the layout a little bit. You can delete some of these if you don't need it, like RSR. You can come in here and replace it with something else like airplane mode, CPU boost. Now I can come down in here and turn CPU boost on and off. And basically what that does, that allows the CPU to boost up to higher levels if you've got enough cooling and enough power coming in and so on. It's kind of confusing, but don't worry about that. CPU boost, leave it on, leave it off. It doesn't really matter much for playing on power, but if you are playing on battery power, then I would probably turn CPU boost off just to save a little bit as well. Now, another thing you can do to save battery power is turn Bluetooth off. I know it's silly, but turn it off if you're trying to save a little bit of battery. You can also turn your Wi-Fi off if you're playing emulators or games and so forth. The other thing that I'll do is turn off my RGB. Simply turning that off can save battery power. There's tons of things that you can do to save a little bit of battery. They seem dumb and simple, but they really just are. One of the other things you'll notice in here is this calibration menu. This is nothing new per se, but we do have the option to calibrate our gyro, our right and our left triggers. By default, mine wouldn't go to 100%, so I was able to calibrate them through here. Same with the right and the left sticks. Make sure you go through and calibrate these things every so often because they can get a little off. As far as lighting goes, you can go in here and change a lot of the stuff with the lighting now. If you want to take it to a friend's house and you're sleeping over, or you've got it on your nightstand and you don't want to see that thing blinking while you're sleeping, turn this off and it'll turn the lighting from blinking while you're sleeping. There's a few other settings in here as well. Aura Sync, come in here, you can change a lot more here. In-game lighting effects or performance mode, leave that off. That does use more CPU performance. But most of all, where I like to go is the aura effects. I can change the colors a lot more here, and there's a few extra features. So if you're trying to dial in your RGB to your preference, check that menu as well. Updates, make sure you go into the update section, check for updates, make sure you're checking that. The other app that you really need to make sure that you are updating often, and this is the My Asus app right here. Make sure you go in and hit check for updates under this update section. If you're not checking for updates, you're probably missing out a lot. It's kind of counterproductive to have two different apps. It's quite annoying. I wish they could merge everything into one, but there's actually been several updates that have come through only on the My Asus app, and they weren't in the Armory Crate app. So the other place you're going to want to check for updates is going to be the Windows Update section. Make sure you're checking for updates. You know, it's fine to stay on these new updates lately. They're not going to break your device. Sometimes when there's like a major update or something, it might do something different. I always update my stuff. I never have issues. Maybe it's because I stay on the bleeding edge of stuff that I don't have issues. I don't know. Some of the people who maybe are having issues because they waited too long. Maybe they're on a really old version and all of a sudden they decided to update and it changed something and they don't know how to get it changed back. That's typically it. It's not because it's broken. It just changed the way that you did things, so much so that you now are lost. Make sure you go into Windows Updates, go down here to Advanced Settings, scroll down, look for optional updates. Make sure you get all the driver updates. Make sure you get everything updated because that really does make a difference with performance. So with that said, let's actually give you a few scenarios on things I promised earlier. The number one question, comment, issue, whatever I have is when people introduce a dock and they're trying to use the stock ROG power adapter. Now there's nothing wrong with the stock ROG power adapter, but I'm actually going to show you why people are having this issue. Here's our stock power adapter. So before I plug this up, we're going to open up the Armory Crate menu here and notice the SPL, SPPT, and FPPT unplugged. 25, 30, 35, and then we have a maximum of 25 here. When I plug this in, no trickery, no nothing. You see it recognizes it's on power delivery. It's on power delivery now, but nothing changed as far as my power goes. So what gives? You would normally think this is fine if you were a new user. You wouldn't think anything of it at all. You would be like, hey, you know, I'm playing my Ally. Cool. But watch this. I'm not going to move anything, but I want you to pay attention to these numbers here. Now I'm going to take my battery bank. This isn't plugged into the wall. This is just a 145 watt U-green battery bank. And watch what happens when I plug it in. Boom. 30, 43, 53. And now we've got 30 watts. Why? Why is that happening? I'm going to tell you why. All docks, it doesn't matter what dock it is, every dock, there's always power that needs to be sent to every one of these ports. And unfortunately, they use about 5 watts or so. The Ally is smarter than all of us combined. We cannot outsmart the Ally, unfortunately. We just can't trick it. We can't force it to do more if it doesn't have what it needs to begin with. Here's where the U-green accessories are going to come into play. If you are a docked user and you're going to play this Ally on a dock, do not buy a 65 watt charger. Do not. I repeat, do not. The stock power adapter is 65 watts. If you buy a 65 watt charger, it's just simply going to be a replacement. It's going to be a nicer charger. It's probably going to charge a lot more efficiently. Well, actually, it does charge a lot more efficiently with their thermal guard and their GaN Infinity technology. These do keep it a lot cooler, and it does charge a lot faster. And you can charge multiple devices at once. It's good to have these, but simply put, 65 watts is not something that is just your catch-all, do-it-all. It's going to just do it perfectly fine kind of charger. This would be for the people on the go that just need a really lightweight charger, similar size to this right here. And it gives you a couple extra options for ports. That's really about it. Power-wise, you're still going to be limited just as you would with the stock charger. Now the 100 watt charger, let's try it out. We're going to unplug this. And we're actually going to test the theory. Oh, everything's dropping. We're actually going to test the theory here. So we'll bring up the Armory Crate menu. We are back on battery power, 25, 30, 35. What happens when I plug it in the 100 watt charger? Instantly, 30, 43, 53. So we instantly have more power, and more power means more FPS. So simply having a 100 watt charger for a device that's going to take 30 watts. Oh, people get triggered when you say that. They're like, I don't need it. If it's going to take 30 watts, why do I need 100? The math ain't mathin'. Math ain't mathin' because you're not taking into consideration you've got an NVMe drive. You got fans. You got a battery. You got RAM. You got a motherboard. You got a screen. You got RGB. You got buttons. Guess what? They all take power. Think about it. Something takes power in my device other than my APU. I want my money back. Scam! No, it's not a scam. They're not giving you the full picture here. And it's not on purpose. It's just the way it's designed to be. The only thing you have control over in this device for power is the APU. You can't control how much power the screen necessarily uses. You can't control how much power your NVMe uses. You can't control how much power anything else, your sound card, your anything. You can't control it. It's all set. However many millivolts, how many volts, how many watts. It doesn't matter. You can't change that. Your total system power draw out of this is 65 watts just by itself on the dot. When you introduce a dock and you measure the power that this is pulling, you end up at 68 watts sometimes higher. It depends on the dock. So there you go. Buy a 100 watt charger. Well, what about a 70 watt charger? Hey, that should do it. But do you see any 70 watt chargers out here? I don't. There's not a lot of options between 65 and 100, which is this one over here. Now you could get a 160, but you're at the point of diminishing returns for the Ally. But let's say you have a laptop. This would be great for laptop users. and Ally users alike. You could share one charger to rule them all. But it's not a necessity. If you go too much on the wattage, is it going to hurt your device? No, not at all. It's only going to draw what it can draw. There's another limiting factor. I forgot to mention, the most important limiting factor on most scenarios is your cable. Most people are using the wrong cables on these, unfortunately, because they don't come with a cable. So I'm going to give you another scenario. 100-watt charger, USB-C cable. And I'm going to just bypass the whole dock altogether. I'm just going to plug it straight in. Way there's no confusion. 25, 30, 35. Now, why is that? Why are we plugged into a 100-watt charger and we can't get our 30-watt mode? Why? Watch this. Different cable. Boom. 30, 43, 53. More FPS, more power. More power, more FPS, whatever. Cable matters. Most of these cables, you need to be looking at the rated power on them. I've had a lot of cables out there, especially the longer ones, 6 foot and above, 5 foot and above. Any of your longer cables are going to struggle more to carry that wattage that long of a distance. So I try to stick with, the 2 or 3 footers. I think it's like a 3.3 foot. Try to stay with some of those. I'll simplify it. These cables aren't created equal. Just because they have the same ends on them doesn't mean they are the same cable. There's different thickness wires inside. There's different gauge wires. There's different shielding. There are tons of variables in these wires. Some of them even have different setups inside. There's different versions of USB-C. This is a very important thing that you should not overlook. Now, another tool I have in my arsenal is this little OLED cable right here. Now, if I plug that in, and I plug this in here, something like this OLED cable is actually going to tell me how many watts it's pulling to charge it right now. Now, it's only pulling 20 watts. Here's the other scenario where things can go wrong. I was plugged in the wrong port. Plug it in the top port, and what do we have? Should pick up a little more here in a second. Oh, we are not on the mode. See, here's another scenario. This cable right here has had some issues with certain higher efficiency chargers just because of the type of cable this is. Now, this cable works on most other chargers, and it is rated for 100 watts. You can see there, it is rated for 100 watts, but as you saw, it only went up to the 25 watt mode, and it wasn't pulling more than 25 watts. Some cables just simply don't work with some chargers. So you might have to try a few different cables until you find the one that works for you. So we've mentioned 65 watts. These chargers are good for Ally replacement chargers to give you more ports, a lighter option, a more compact option, a more efficient charger. These are going to be just the one-to-one swap outs. If you're trying to get the most FPS possible when docked or when using any type of hubs or anything like that, go ahead and buy a 100-watt charger. They're worth it. A lot of people have also been asking, is Ugreen safe? Why do we see them all over the place? Why are they on Linus Tech Tips? Why are they on all these different major channels? Simply put, they work. They're a good company to work with. I'm not getting paid to shill for any of this stuff. They give me the products to keep for free, and they tell me, hey, do you want to review this? Here's the stuff. Let us know what you think. I don't really have stipulations. No, I'm going to be honest with you. I'd just buy a 100-watt charger, or buy this. If you really want something cool and you want to double your portability gaming time, then buy something like this. This is 25,000 MA8. Basically, the rating that you're going to see on most of them is 25,000, 30,000, 20,000, 15,000, and so on. But the other important factor is the wattage of how many watts it can actually output of a single USB-C port. Now this one can do, it says up to 145 watts, but on a single port it can do 140, which is more than enough to keep this thing at its 30 watt mode, but still allow it to boost up to those 53 watts as well. Now, just as a comparison to showing you not all battery banks are created equal, bigger doesn't always mean better. This one technically had more mAh. It's a bigger battery, but it does not actually support that 30 watt mode. I can only get up to 25 watts on this device. So bigger doesn't always mean better. You need to just make sure that you're getting the device that's right for you and your use case scenario. This has a little LCD on the side so you can tell how much charge is still left on it. You can charge multiple things at once. I've used this thing a ton. You can see the scratch marks from where the little strap holds it on to the back of my Ally. I use this. I use this. I use this. I use this. Every Ugreen product I use. Like, I have so many chargers. I have so many docks. I have so many cables. But the #1 brand when it comes to charging and docks that I just go to, it's Ugreen. Now, there's other scenarios where I might recommend a different brand dock for one person. I dial things in for the individual who's asking the question. If someone says, for example, hey CPPC, I have an Ally, I only need DisplayPort, I want a very inexpensive dock with just DisplayPort, and it needs to support high refresh, it needs to have that VRR capability, I need this, I need that, I might recommend one specific dock for that. But then if you come at me saying, hey, I need a dock that can do 2 4K HDMI displays, I need Ethernet, I need this, I need that, well, I might recommend something to you different. But if you come to me and say I need a budget-friendly option with Ethernet, USB, card reader, I only need one HDMI, and it needs to be slim and it needs to be lightweight, then I recommend this. There's so many different docks, and there's not a one dock fits them all scenario, just like there's not a one charger fits them all scenario. The only thing close to that would be the 100 watt charger. This will fit just about every scenario. But then, what if you have a laptop? You could use something like this. And these actually are great chargers for kind of like that catch-all use. But if you don't have a laptop, you don't have anything that's going to pull this much power, it's kind of overkill for an Ally or a handheld. But the technology that they are using, the thermal guard, the air pyra, everything that they have put into these is what they say it is. It's not snake oil. They have shrunken the size on these significantly. They are really good indeed. I have 2 100 watt chargers actually. I got this one, which is the smaller version featuring the air pyra technology, and their new Infinity. This is basically like half the size almost as the original 100 watts. But I use both. I keep one by my bedside, one in here, and I can take it with me wherever I go. So there's a few tips and tricks on how to keep your Ally in the state where you're going to get either the best performance, the best battery life, or whatever. I know I've been away for a while, guys, so bear with me. I'm dealing with some personal physical issues, and I just really can't say much else other than I'm sorry. You know, if you know me, you know. So bear with me, guys, while I take care of my mental and physical health and make sure that I am on top of things. I'm gonna try to push out some more laptop stuff. I haven't forgotten about that. You know, thank you, Lenovo. Huge heart to you guys. I love you. I'm working diligently on pushing that out this week. I'm gonna do a comparison between desktop versus laptop. What do you need? Is a desktop really like a must-have? Do you really even need a desktop in 2024? Can you get away with a laptop? Can you get away with a handheld? You know, it's really going to come down to your use case scenario, but I'm going to cover them all. I'm going to try anyways. We're going to cover some audio stuff. You know, I wanted to cover these DJI mics, little portable wireless mics. I'm just not very happy with them. I don't think they're worth the money. You might hear them in another video. I'm thinking about just sending them back. I was going to do a comparison between the DJI Mic 1 versus the DJI Mic 2, and I don't think I have it in me to do it. And I don't like it anyways. And simply put, if there's a product that I don't like, I'll probably send it back before I do a negative review on it. Just simply because I try to keep things positive, and I'll definitely be here to tell you guys what's not worth buying. Of course. All right, I've rambled enough. Oh my gosh, 30-minute video. Yikes. All right, if you have any questions, drop them below. I'm sorry, guys. Again, I'm really sorry. I feel really bad, but like I said, I need to make sure that I am okay and my family's okay and my dogs are okay, and I have kind of a busy life. Even though there's not a lot that I can do sometimes, I guess I just feel mentally overwhelmed and I go into like shutdown mode. And my other struggle is editing. I don't edit very well. I'm an okay editor at best, but it might take me a week to psych myself up to record something because the thought of editing it makes me just shut down mentally and physically. I don't know how to get over that other than to keep trying. You know, they say practice makes perfect, and I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to keep chugging away at it. I would love it if somebody could take over the editing for me and enjoy the creative freedom and enjoy being able to earn a little bit of side money, but no one has stepped up to offer that. So, you know, it is what it is. In due time, everything will come. I have faith. So I'm not stressing right now. I'm about to be pressing this button to end this video. So, you know what that means. I hope all of you guys have a good afternoon, good evening, or good night.